Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. If you haven't already done so, please make sure the volume of this podcast is set perfectly to your listening enjoyment. Please take your seat, whether that's on the treadmill, car, sofa, or bed, and buckle in for the last trip. My name is Jamie Beebe, and I'll be your tour guide recreating someone's last days in paradise. On behalf of myself and everyone behind the scenes, please enjoy the Last Trip podcast. And because nobody likes a long flight to get to where they want to be, let's prepare for takeoff. Cancun, Mexico. Turquoise waters, white sand beaches, and the promise of paradise. It's where couples go to reconnect, to heal, to escape. But for Monica Beresford-Redman, that escape turned deadly. She was vibrant, successful, loved by her friends, and the heartbeat of Los Angeles' salsa scene. A mother, a business owner, a woman who believed in second chances, even when those chances came with cracks in the foundation. Her husband, Bruce Beresford-Redman, is known for producing reality TV shows, dramas, betrayals, high-stakes tension broadcast to millions. But behind the cameras, the real drama was unfolding in their marriage. When the couple arrived at the luxury Moon Palace resort, it was meant to be a fresh start, a tropical getaway to salvage what fame, infidelity, and fractured trust had nearly destroyed. Instead, it became a crime scene. When Monica's body was found, hidden in a sewer, beaten and strangled just steps from their hotel room. Was it a crime of passion, a calculated murder, or something far more tangled beneath the surface of paradise? Let's follow the clues, the contradictions, and the international manhunt that turned the world's gaze into a sun-soaked resort with shadows darker than anyone expected. This is the story of Monica Beresford-Redman and the deadly secrets hidden in paradise. Cancun is the kind of place that sells you a dream. For Monica and Bruce Beresford-Redman, that dream was supposed to be a reset. A chance to leave behind the betrayal, the headlines, the whispered rumors, and lose themselves in the glittering facade of Mexico's most famous resort town. But Cancun isn't always what it seems. It sits at the top of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, stretched along the Caribbean Sea like a glittering ribbon of white sand, lush jungle, and turquoise waters so clear it feels unreal. But it wasn't always a bustling tourist haven. In fact, just a few decades ago, Cancun was little more than an uninhabited stretch of mangroves, sand dunes, and dense coastal forest. The Maya once thrived in this region, leaving behind ancient temples, jungle-covered ruins, and whispers of their civilization etched into limestone cliffs. It wasn't until the 1970s that Cancun as we know it began to take shape. The Mexican government, looking to boost tourism and transform the economy, handpicked this remote coastal spot. Pristine, undeveloped, practically untouched. They poured billions into creating a resort empire. And the plan worked. By the early 2000s, Cancun had transformed into an international playground, a place where spring breakers, honeymooners, and jet-setting couples came to escape, indulge, and immerse themselves in the postcard-perfect promise of paradise. Luxury hotels lined the infamous Zona Hotelera, a slender 14-mile barrier island shaped like the number 7. Crystal clear lagoons on one side, endless stretches of Caribbean beach on the other. It's a place of contrasts. High-end shopping malls, all-inclusive resorts, tequila tastings, yacht excursions, all built atop a history layered with ancient Maya settlements and wild, undeveloped jungle. But for those in the know, Cancun's allure goes beyond the beaches and umbrella drinks. There's the underground river systems of Rio Secreto, hidden caverns snaking through limestone bedrock filled with turquoise water and eerie stalactites. You can snorkel through them, floating in silence beneath the Earth's surface. There's Isla Mujeres, just a ferry ride away, once a sacred site dedicated to the Maya goddess of fertility, now a quirky island escape where sea turtles nest and locals whisper about pirate legends. Or the more unusual side of Cancun, like the Subaquatic Museum of Art, where hundreds of life-sized human statues rest beneath the ocean waves, slowly overtaken by coral and marine life, a surreal underwater graveyard blending art and nature. But for most tourists, especially couples trying to rekindle something fragile, Cancun is about luxury, about hiding away in self-contained oasis where everything, the food, the drinks, the entertainment, is curated for comfort and escapism. Which brings us to the Moon Palace Resort. In 2010, the Moon Palace wasn't just another beachfront hotel. It was an empire in its own right. Sprawling across 123 acres of beachfront property tucked away from the chaos of the main hotel zone, the Moon Palace promised exclusivity, privacy, and endless indulgence. Tropical gardens, private balconies, multiple swimming pools, golf courses, gourmet restaurants, nightly shows, and ocean views that stretched endlessly toward the horizon. It was the kind of place where couples came to fall back in love, or to pretend the cracks in their relationship didn't exist. Where you could order champagne to your room, book a couple's massage at the spa, walk the beach at sunset, and lose yourself in the illusion of perfection. It was paradise. But beneath the surface of the Moon Palace's manicured lawns and sparkling infinity pools, the reality was far more complicated. Because in April of 2010, that carefully constructed world of luxury was shattered when Monica Beresford-Redman suddenly vanished. And within days, paradise would be replaced by police tape, media swarms, and the chilling discovery of a body hidden in the shadows of the resort. Because paradise is only ever as perfect as the people who walk into it. Behind the glassy ocean views and the curated hotel packages came the guests, their stories, their secrets, their intentions. And for Monica and Bruce, their story was already unraveling long before they ever set foot on Cancun's sand. They weren't just another couple on vacation. Their faces, their names, would soon be splashed across international headlines. But before the accusations, before the tragedy, they were two people trying to rewrite the ending to their fractured love story. So, who were they? How did they get there? And what went so horribly wrong behind the doors of their luxury resort suite? Let's go back to where it all began. Let's meet Bruce and Monica. Bruce entered the world on April 20th, 1971. He grew up in the leafy suburbs of Woodcliff Lake, New Jersey, son to David and Juanita. His adolescence? Unremarkable in most ways, but with a twist. He and high school friend Rick Hurwitz, future co-creator of Pimp My Ride, shared a love for classic cars. Bruce once rolled up to school in a Cadillac hearse, Rick in a lime green Olds Delta 88, an ironic teenage declaration of identity. He earned his diploma from Pascack Hills High, then headed south to New College of Florida in Sarasota. After graduation, Bruce planted roots in Los Angeles and stepped into the fast lane of reality TV. He joined producers behind Survivor and Pimp My Ride, mastering the drama, the pace, the calculated tension of prime-time storytelling. Colleagues remembered him as steady, cool, even-tempered, encouraging, said one Survivor contestant. But beneath the polished veneer lay layers yet to be revealed. Born in Brazil, Monica carried dual identities, Latin soul blended with American ambition. Though less documented about her childhood, what shines through is her resilience and creativity. Grounded but ambitious, nurturing but bold. It was this fierce spirit that drew Bruce into her orbit. Somewhere in the late 1990s, Bruce's path crossed Monica's, her soulful confidence magnetizing him, his cool ambition grounding her. They married in April 1999 in Rio de Janeiro, a union blending his Hollywood polish with her artistic grace. Surrounded by tropical vows, they planted a seed of dreams, creative synergy, and family. Over the next decade, they built a life in Southern California. Monica opened the Zambumba Bar and Restaurant, a haven for dance and culture in LA, while raising their 2 young children. She was the soulful entrepreneur. He was the behind-the-scenes storyteller. Friends recall a dynamic spark, Monica's warmth lighting up every room, Bruce's steady gaze guiding decisions. Conversations at Zambumba often faded into the hum of salsa beat and clinking glasses. Yet beneath the social veneer, pressures mounted. Artistic temperaments clashed with production schedules. Creative souls bristled against contractual obligations. By early 2010, tension frayed the edges of their union. Monica had discovered evidence of Bruce's affair with a casting director he was working with, and that it had been going on for quite some time. During Monica's first pregnancy, for example, papers revealed Bruce purchased an expensive watch, not for his pregnant wife, but for his mistress. A watch that she then later returned for the cash. Beyond the affair, it was believed that the couple had marital problems that lasted years and included mental abuse, as well as Bruce's addiction to phone sex, with bills totaling over $5,000. It's unclear if or when the affair ended, but Monica found out after discovering several emails and text messages and after overhearing a conversation between her husband and his mistress. It was then that Monica took concrete steps. She cleaned out the couple's bank account, changed the locks on their Palos Verdes home, informed the children's school to restrict Bruce's access, and even took the children to Hawaii alone. You go, girl. These were unmistakable precautions, laying the groundwork to end the marriage. She gave Bruce an ultimatum. Either give her a divorce and divide their assets in half, or she would keep everything she withdrew from their accounts. Instead, Bruce asked for one more chance. In late March 2010, Bruce proposed a family vacation to Cancun. Monica, perhaps hoping to salvage what remained, agreed, allowing the trip to move forward. But witnesses and family, including their nanny, reported explosive arguments in the weeks before their trip, centered around Bruce's betrayal. They arrived in Cancun not as lovers, but as reluctant allies. Monica hoping to forgive, Bruce pleading for renewal. But, as we know, paradise can be deceptive. Bruce, Monica, and their 2 young children touched down in Cancun on March 31st, 2010, arriving at the lush, all-inclusive sanctuary Moon Palace Resort. For Monica, it was meant to be a fresh beginning. For Bruce, that plea for reconnection. Their marriage, already on rocky ground, now hinged on the promise of turquoise water and tranquil nights. When they checked in, the resort staff noted nothing unusual. Smiling parents with 2 sweet children clutching their room key to Tower Suite 7816. Their suite looked out over the palm-fringed gardens and the glittering Caribbean beyond. Daylight brought laughter, family excursions, and at night, soft resort lights and possible calm. Yet, behind the smiles, tensions still simmered. By Sunday, April 4th, hotel staff and nearby guests began noticing friction. A security guard witnessed Bruce and Monica in a heated conversation outside a resort restaurant. Monica appearing distraught, Bruce appearing forceful. A witness reported he twice attempted to physically assault her before stopping when seen. Witnesses in the room below claimed to have been woken around 6 a.m. April 5th by screams, crying for help, and extremely loud banging. They said it sounded like a woman in extreme distress. Bruce later told Mexican police that Monica had left that day at 10 a.m. to go shopping in town, but never returned. She left behind her passport and cell phone, but took her credit cards, although they were never used. Now, hotel records don't corroborate her departure, because she never formally signed out, and according to the hotel, there was no CCTV footage available. Now, that same night, guests reported more disturbances. Furniture being thrown, voices raised, violent arguing, noise palpable enough that the front desk called Bruce to check if everything was all right. Now, despite all this, Bruce insisted everything was fine and remained calm on the phone. Tuesday morning, fearing something was wrong, Bruce filed a missing persons report with Mexican police and contacted Monica's sister and the U.S. consulate, claiming she simply never returned from her errand the day before. The next few days, Bruce seemingly remained calm as he looked for his wife. There was no urgency, and authorities seemed to feel the same. Then, the unthinkable. On April 8th, which would have been Monica's 42nd birthday, her naked body was discovered, beaten and strangled in a sewer cistern just meters from their hotel room. Autopsy results confirmed both asphyxiation and blunt force trauma to the head. Her body had been placed there days earlier. Now, at first, it played out like so many other vacation tragedies. A missing person, a murder, a grieving husband, an investigation clouded by language barriers and international headlines. But the cracks in Bruce's story widened fast. Mexican authorities quickly zeroed in on Bruce. He was questioned about the scratches on his body and the bloodstains found in their hotel suite. He denied everything, said he didn't know what happened to Monica, claimed she vanished after a simple trip to town. But the evidence told a different story. And as investigators dug deeper, through witness reports, forensic trails, and Bruce's shifting alibis, chilling theories emerged, each one darker than the last. Theories of rage, of betrayal, of a deadly fight that shattered paradise and left Monica buried beneath the resort's manicured surface. In the months that followed, those theories would collide with the harsh weight of international law, and Bruce Beresford-Redman's world would come crashing down. He was the last person with Monica, and they had witness accounts of numerous arguments on the hotel grounds, and his story wasn't adding up. But the evidence was circumstantial, and they didn't yet have enough to arrest him. So they took his passport and told him not to leave Mexico while they continued their investigation. And Bruce? Well, he stayed in Mexico for about 2 weeks, and then quietly slipped back into the United States. This is how the case against him unraveled, and how Mexico would fight to bring him back to face justice. When Monica's body was discovered in a sewer cistern about 80 meters from their suite, the autopsy reported horrifying details. Scratches around her neck, classic signs of asphyxiation, and a heavy blow to the right temple, all consistent with a brutal struggle and suffocation early Monday night. Dead long before Bruce reported her missing, and the autopsy revealed she was already lifeless when someone dumped her. This was no longer a disappearance, it was murder. Bruce himself had scratches on his ear, hands, arms, and legs, wounds consistent with what one would expect in a violent altercation. When confronted, Bruce offered his explanations. His bumps and scratches, he said, came from playing in river caves with their son and scraping himself on a rope while swimming. But guests in nearby rooms had reported hearing agonizing screams and pounding at 6 a.m. on April 5th. And Bruce first said he and Monica were arguing about their children, and later changed his story to tell people they were playing a loud game with the children. The hotel's electronic system recorded at least 11 entries and exits to their room between late Monday and early Tuesday morning, long after Monica had supposedly left on a morning shopping trip. These frequent, unexplained door uses cast a spotlight on Bruce's shifting timeline. And that timeline was suspect, to say the least. Now, Bruce claimed Monica left at 10 a.m. Monday to go shopping, but witnesses reported the heated arguments later that evening, well after her supposed departure. He also told authorities that she left behind her phone, passport, and their children, a pattern that her sisters pointed out would be extremely out of character for the mother of two. So Mexico called his statements inconsistent, particularly the mismatch between his story and the recorded key entries. A judge labeled the timeline implausible and possibly an attempt to keep the children in the room alone while he moved around the resort. Forensic teams discovered drops of blood on the pillows, balcony railing, and pillars in the suite, evidence indicating the violence may have begun right there, although there are discrepancies as to whom the blood belonged to. Bruce was initially compelled to stay in Mexico and surrender his passport. His children went back to Los Angeles and stayed with his parents, which didn't sit well with Monica's sisters. While his parents and lawyers insisted on his innocence, the sisters pushed back, petitioning for guardianship, but ultimately Bruce's parents were awarded the children. And like I said, despite being told to stay in Mexico, Bruce mysteriously vanished, only to resurface in Los Angeles days later, hitchhiking across the border and taking a train home, as Mexican authorities had kept his passport. Now, he justified his escape by claiming he wasn't charged, had no legal obligation to stay, and was determined to attend to personal matters and be with his children. Bruce's lawyer launched a vigorous counter-narrative, insisting he was a scapegoat and pointing a finger at reportedly shady incidents at Moon Palace, claiming a Scottish woman was beaten to death in 2009, a Canadian man fell from a balcony, and a female guest suffered a sexual assault by staff, all presented as evidence of a dangerous resort environment. And Bruce emphasized that the couple was still very much in love, that they had begun marriage counseling before the trip, and that his affair had ended. But on May 31st, 2010, Mexico officially issued an arrest warrant for aggravated homicide, beginning a drawn-out extradition process. In November, U.S. Marshals arrested him in Rancho Palos Verdes. A federal judge denied bail and granted Mexico's request. Now, after a lot of legal resistance, Bruce was finally extradited to Cancun on February 8, 2012, to await trial. And that trial was successful. He was eventually convicted of aggravated homicide in March 2015, but only received a 12-year sentence rather than the 30 years he was up against. He served 7.5 years and was released in 2019 after good behavior credits, time served, and a $2,000 restitution to the family. Because under Mexican law, 60% completion of a sentence makes an inmate eligible for release. Bruce continues to assert his innocence, claiming it was a rush to judgment, pointing to discrepancies in evidence, contamination concerns, and the alleged resort history of violence. Now, you guys know, I always think it's the husband. But in this case, was justice delivered? Or did gaps in the investigation and foreign dynamics cast shadows on the prosecution's narrative? What truly happened behind that resort door? Was this a crime of passion fueled by betrayal, a calculated murder, a tragic accident, or something entirely different? Bruce now lives freely with his children and still insists on his innocence, even though he was convicted and served time for her murder. But is there a possibility he's telling the truth? Now, I believe Mexican authorities got the right guy and the justice system prevailed. But let's look at other theories. What if Bruce didn't kill Monica? It's a question that lingers in the background of every headline, every courtroom transcript, every whispered conversation among those who knew them. Because for all the evidence stacked against him, the scratches, the blood, the keycard logs, the affair, there remains a possibility, however faint, that the truth is more complicated and far darker. Now, if Bruce is innocent, then someone else murdered Monica. And that possibility opens the door to unsettling theories, ones that point beyond their troubled marriage and into the shadows of Cancun's glossy paradise. Let's start with the most widely circulated alternative, the resort itself. The Moon Palace Resort, like many all-inclusive destinations in Cancun, sells the image of effortless luxury, sun-drenched pools, endless cocktails, couples strolling on the manicured grounds at sunset. But dig beneath the surface and troubling stories emerge. Bruce's legal team wasted no time pointing fingers in that direction. They highlighted disturbing incidents tied to the Moon Palace in the years leading up to Monica's death. In 2009, a 77-year-old Scottish woman named Julia Howard vanished from the property, later found beaten to death. Just 2 years earlier, Canadian tourist Jeff Toes checked in for a relaxing getaway, only to be found dead, the victim of what authorities ruled a fall from his third-story balcony. But Toes' family disputed the official account, insisting the extent of his injuries pointed to a brutal beating, not an accident. And it doesn't stop there. A Baltimore dentist contacted Bruce's attorneys, claiming his daughter had been the target of an attempted sexual assault by a hotel employee, allegations that led to the employee's dismissal, but no formal charges. Now, taken together, these incidents raise uncomfortable questions. Could Monica have crossed paths with a dangerous employee? Could someone have taken advantage of the tensions between Monica and Bruce, knowing suspicions would naturally fall on him? Well, it's not impossible. Tourist crimes in Mexico, particularly at sprawling resorts shielded by private security, often go unreported, or become mired in conflicting investigations divided by nationality, jurisdiction, and corporate interests. What if it was a random act of violence? Cancun, for all its glittering reputation, has long walked the line between paradise and peril. Even back in 2010, as tourism boomed, parts of Quintana Roo struggled with petty crime, opportunistic assaults, and the simmering undercurrent of cartel violence that occasionally spilled into the tourist zones. What if Monica left the suite that morning, or later that evening, as some witness statements suggested, and encountered someone with far darker intentions? A predator lurking among the resort staff, a criminal slipping past hotel security. It's a chilling thought, but it would explain the lack of witnesses to her actual departure, the discovery of her body near the resort's surface areas, and the brutal, almost calculated nature of her injuries: strangulation, blunt force trauma, concealment in the sewer system. Could a stranger, unconnected to Bruce or Monica, have exploited the chaos of the night and silenced her before anyone could intervene? Well, I suppose anything's possible. There's also the most conspiratorial theory, one whispered by those sympathetic to Bruce's claims of innocence. What if someone orchestrated this, knowing the fractured state of Bruce and Monica's marriage, the recent affair, the public arguments, the visible scratches, the volatile emotions? What if someone wanted to ensure Bruce took the fall, eliminating Monica and constructing a crime scene littered with just enough damning details to make his guilt appear inevitable? Now, it sounds far-fetched, but it's not entirely without precedent. In cases of high-profile disappearances abroad, narratives often form quickly, locking suspects into roles they can't escape, even if the culprits hide in plain sight. Of course, these theories require stretching the limits of plausibility. They require overlooking the mounting evidence, the witness reports, the forensic details that drew Mexican prosecutors to Bruce in the first place. But justice, especially in foreign jurisdictions clouded by language barriers and media frenzy, is rarely simple. Could Monica have been targeted by a stranger? Could systematic failures at the resort have created an environment where predators moved unseen? Could Bruce, despite his flaws, his affair, his suspicious injuries, truly be innocent? It's a question that haunts the edges of this story. Because even with Bruce serving time, even with the official verdict rendered, there are still gaps, still uncertainties, still quiet doubts among those who knew him. But no doubts among those who loved Monica. The truth is, whether you believe Bruce is guilty, or you lean toward one of the darker alternative theories, Monica's story exposes a chilling reality. Paradise isn't always what it seems. From luxury resorts to bustling tourist hubs, even the most picture-perfect destinations can conceal danger beneath the surface. And for travelers, especially women, couples navigating tension, or anyone finding themselves vulnerable far from home, the risks aren't always obvious until it's too late. But there are ways to stay safer, to be prepared, to avoid the hidden cracks in paradise that Monica unknowingly stepped into. Let's dive into real-world travel tips, things you can do before you board that plane, while you're on the ground, and even in those unexpected moments when your gut tells you something isn't right. Because Monica's story is a tragedy, but for the rest of us, it can also be a wake-up call. Monica wasn't traveling with a stranger. She wasn't backpacking solo. She wasn't navigating foreign cities alone. She was with her husband, the father of her children, the man she once stood beside at the altar, surrounded by family and friends, believing she'd found the person she could trust most in the world. But by the time they boarded that flight to Cancun, that trust was gone, shattered by betrayal, infidelity, and escalating arguments. Monica likely felt caught between two impossible choices: stay home and face the unraveling of her marriage, or take the trip and hope somehow that paradise could fix what was already broken. But for survivors of abuse, travel doesn't always mean freedom. It can mean isolation. It can mean increased danger. And when you're far from home, disconnected from your support system, unfamiliar with local laws, trapped by logistics, the risk can multiply in ways that are hard to see until it's too late. So let's talk about it. If you find yourself traveling overseas with an abusive partner, the tension in your relationship could escalate while you're abroad. There are ways to protect yourself, ways to plan ahead, even in secret, ways to reduce the risk, even when it feels like your options have disappeared. And this isn't about blaming victims, and it's not about telling someone to just leave, because I've been there, and it's not that simple. It's about giving power back, piece by piece, when control feels lost. So before you travel, share your itinerary, even if your partner discourages it. Find a way to discreetly share your travel details with a trusted friend or family member. Send your hotel information, flight numbers, and expected check-in times. Set up regular check-ins via text, email, or encrypted apps. Keep copies of your passport, ID, and important documents separate from your main luggage. If you can, stash emergency cash and a backup credit card somewhere your partner doesn't know about. Maybe inside your shoe, a hidden pocket, or with someone else you're traveling with. Research the nearest U.S. embassy, local police contacts, and crisis centers at your destination. Know where to turn for help before you need it. Save those numbers in your phone under innocuous names or use hidden apps. Establish a signal or arrange a word, phrase, or emoji you can send to someone back home if you feel unsafe. Something simple that signals, I need help, something's wrong. If tensions escalate, avoid isolated hotel areas like remote stairwells, beaches after dark, or secluded resort paths. Stick to public, populated spaces as much as possible. And trust your gut. If your partner's behavior changes, if they isolate you further, confiscate your phone, or escalate aggression, don't dismiss your instincts. Fear in these situations is a survival mechanism, not paranoia. So always have an exit plan. Know how to get to the airport, train station, or embassy independently. If possible, keep a spare hotel key separate from your partner's access. And if violence does happen while you're traveling, document everything. Take photos of your injuries, save threatening messages, record dates and times of incidents. If safe, report to local authorities, though this can be complicated, especially in countries with different legal protections for domestic violence. Contact the embassy. They can help with emergency travel documents, local support resources, and, in extreme cases, evacuation. Reach out to support organizations, groups like the National Domestic Violence Hotline, Pathways to Safety International, or the U.S. State Department have resources specifically for abuse survivors traveling abroad. Monica never got the chance to call for help. She never escaped that room, that resort, that trap disguised as a tropical escape. But her story is a devastating reminder that abuse doesn't stay behind closed doors. It follows you to foreign cities, luxury resorts, picture-perfect destinations. And when you're isolated, unsure, and far from the people who know your situation best, the risks only deepen. If you're listening to this and recognize yourself in Monica's story, know this: you deserve safety. You deserve support. You deserve to return from every trip, not as a cautionary tale, but as someone who reclaimed control, one careful, courageous step at a time. Monica Beresford-Redman boarded that train to Cancun with hope and heartbreak. She traveled with her children and the man she once trusted the most. With the weight of betrayal, the fragile thread of reconciliation stretched between them. But Monica never came home. Her story is one of love turned volatile, of a life cut short by violence, whether at the hands of the person she married or something even more sinister. And for all the theories, trials, and media headlines, we're left with what truly matters. 2 children without their mother, a family shattered, and a reminder that abuse, control, and violence don't stay confined to private spaces. They travel, they escalate, they hide in plain sight, even beneath the sun-soaked facade of a luxury resort. If you or someone you love is living in the reality Monica faced, if you feel unsafe, unheard, or trapped in a relationship marked by control or violence, please know help is out there. You are not alone. In the U.S., you can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233 or text START to 88788. Advocates are available 24/7 to provide confidential support, resources, and a way forward. For those traveling internationally or living abroad, organizations like Pathways to Safety International specialize in assisting survivors of domestic violence outside their home country. They can help with safety planning, legal resources, and emergency support when you feel isolated far from home. Your story does not have to end like Monica's. You have options. You have worth. You deserve to feel safe wherever you are in the world. And finally, remember to leave a review and rate this podcast 5 stars if you like the show, or hell, even if you don't. But either way, feel free to let me know what you think. Please follow The Last Trip on Instagram at The Last Trip Crime Pod, and subscribe on Patreon to support the show. You'll get extra research, videos, photos, and updates, and even learn more about my personal travels. That's patreon.com/The Last Trip Podcast. I'm Jamie Beebe, bringing you your last trip and signing off until the next one. Thanks for listening.